At the time, police were investigating a mysterious double disappearance case, and they were in desperate need of a lead that would help to move the case forward. Though detectives were frustrated, that would change as soon as they learned about this location. What they would find there would be incredibly disturbing, but it would also start to explain everything else that they had encountered up until that point.
911, where's your emergency?
Yes, I'm trying to get a hold of my mother. The lights are on in the house. The door's open. I have knocked. I have called. I'm really worried about her, and I'm scared to go in the house by myself.
The 911 call you just heard was placed a few minutes before midnight on April 18th, 2011. It was made by a 26-year-old woman named Jessica Bullock, who had contacted authorities in Greene County, Missouri, after she was unable to reach her mother, 46-year-old Rebecca Becky Porter. When officers from the Greene County Sheriff's Department arrived at the farmhouse, they quickly cleared it, confirming that there were no intruders. This wasn't exactly comforting, as no one else was inside the home either. In fact, the only thing waiting for authorities was a bunch more disturbing details. Things began as soon as the officers stepped inside, and they were hit by the powerful and unmistakable odor of bleach. The smell was particularly strong in the kitchen, where it appeared that puddles of it had been splashed on the floor. However, the only bottle under the sink was completely full. In a room that looked like it was being used as an office, police found more signs of strange activity. A mess of tangled wires had been haphazardly scattered around. They were underneath a monitor that was no longer connected to a computer, and which seemed to have been hastily tossed onto the carpet. Similarly concerning discoveries were soon made in the master bedroom. The place was in a complete state of disarray, with pillows, blankets, and other items thrown onto the floor. In the meantime, detectives asked the family about Rusty and Becky's relationship. Were there any problems that they knew about? Was there anyone with a grudge against them? For Kay, one person immediately came to mind: Becky's ex-husband. Detectives interviewed Becky's ex-husband, but it quickly became clear that he had nothing to do with her or Rusty's disappearances. Inside the couple's home, detectives found letters written by Becky to Rusty. In them, Becky was expressing a lot of frustration, saying that she was fed up with the way things were going. When police asked her daughter, Jessica, about this, she said that recently her mother had confided in her that she and Rusty had been arguing a lot. Anyway, what does seem to be true is that when Becky came into Rusty's life, things got a whole lot better. Pretty much every statement given by one of his family members mentions at some point that he seemed extremely in love with Becky, and that she was the reason he turned his life around. Now you might be saying to yourself, if Rusty and Becky were so happy then, what was the deal with those letters that police found? Well, according to Rusty's siblings, the tension between the couple wasn't necessarily about their relationship. It was about an ongoing situation that they were having with another member of the family. That family member was Rusty's uncle and neighbor, Robert Campbell. Apparently, it was well known that Rusty and Robert didn't get along. Robert was very territorial when it came to the family's 120-acre property, and he wasn't happy when Kay let Rusty and Becky move into the old farmhouse.
Can you tell me and look me in the eye and tell me you didn't have anything to do with this?
I did not have anything to do with it.
It's your sister's boy. This is flesh and blood.
You're a good cop, but you're barking up the wrong tree.
In July of 2011, investigators with the Greene County Sheriff's Department were notified about a potential lead in the Rusty and Becky Porter case. It had come from an inmate at the local county jail who said that they had information that might be of interest. The details were nothing short of chilling. The inmate told authorities that one night shortly before he was arrested, he had been hanging out at a bar when he was approached by a man named Tony Friend. The pair struck up a conversation, during which Tony began to brag about a bunch of crimes he said he had committed. Among them, he claimed, were the murders of a local couple. The 43-year-old claimed that he had never met the Porters and had nothing to do with their disappearances. He refused to respond to many questions, and even when he did speak, he was careful to remain evasive with his answers. While questioning Tony's family, investigators asked if there were any places that he used to frequent, anywhere that he might go to get away or otherwise escape from everyday life. One such location came up a number of times. A cousin of Tony's referred to it as the Bulldozer Place. The cousin told detectives that the Bulldozer Place was a spot where she, Tony, and a bunch of their other family members used to play when they were kids. It was in a dense, wooded area in Taney County near Cedar Creek, one that was difficult to get to by vehicle. This was exactly the kind of information detectives were hoping for. On July 21st, investigators headed out to the Bulldozer Place, along with their counterparts from the Taney County Sheriff's Office. They went to that specific broken-down cabin that Tony's cousin had mentioned, and disturbingly, as soon as they got within a few yards of it, they could smell the unmistakably foul odor of decomposition. In the center of the cabin, there was a large pile of debris, and when detectives cleared it, they revealed a hole in the wooden floor. Inside were the bodies of two people. They were still dressed in what appeared to be pajamas, and an autopsy revealed that each of them had died from a single contact gunshot wound to the right temple. Because of the level of decomposition, investigators needed to use DNA and dental records to make a positive identification. But soon, everyone's worst fears were confirmed. These were the bodies of Rusty and Becky Porter. Right now, all signs pointed to their main suspect, Tony Friend, as being the culprit. However, authorities knew that even with this major break in the case, the likelihood of obtaining a confession from him was pretty much zero. Tony was a hardened criminal, and their last interview with him had demonstrated that he wasn't going to crack under the pressure of an interrogation. Luckily for investigators, there was someone else who just might. You see, when police had taken that second deep dive into the cell phone records, they hadn't just limited their search to Tony. They were also looking at people he had been in contact with, including a number of his family members. And according to the data, there were 3 people who had followed an almost identical path to Tony on the night of April 17th. His wife, Wendy Friend, his nephew, Dusty Hicks, and his son, Philip Friend. Philip was only 26 years old, and detectives felt that he was the one with the most to lose. After kind of feeling him out in an initial interview where he denied any involvement, they decided to move ahead with murder charges against him. Almost immediately afterwards, Philip said that he was ready to talk. Philip said that a few days before the crime, his dad had come to him about a job. He said it paid $100,000 in exchange for taking 2 birthdays.
My dad came to me a week before their disappearance, told me he had this job. It was $100,000 for 2 birthdays.
Okay, and what does taking birthdays mean to
That
you?
means killing them.
On the night of April 17th, Philip said his dad, Wendy, and Dusty got into their truck and drove to the Porter's property. Wendy waited in the vehicle while the rest of them put on ski masks and gloves and started creeping up towards the farmhouse. Initially, they had struggled to find a way inside, but after a while, Dusty noticed that the kitchen window had been left slightly open. They pulled it the rest of the way, cut the screen, and then Tony and Philip lifted him so he could climb through. Once inside, he opened the back door so that they could get in as well. The 3 of them then walked to the master bedroom, where they ambushed Rusty and Becky in their sleep.
My dad helped him get into the kitchen. He unlocked the back door. My dad walked in, I walked in. My dad flipped on the light to their bedroom. They jumped out of bed. My dad and Dusty were holding guns at him. He was scared. Said, "Shut up or I'll shoot you."
While holding the couple at gunpoint, Philip said that they destroyed the security cameras and stole the computer it was recording to so that there wouldn't be any footage to find. They splashed bleach all over the kitchen in an attempt to cover any forensic evidence that they might have left behind. Prior to breaking in, they had also duct taped around the wrists and ankles of their clothing to prevent any stray hair fibers from falling. Once all of this was done, Philip explained that they had marched Rusty and Becky out to the truck. Their hands were zip-tied, and they were forced to get inside. Philip said that they were completely terrified and that they were begging for their lives and kept pleading to know who they were and what was going on.
What'd they say?
"Why are you doing this? Who are you? Please don't kill us." Kept saying that over and over.
Philip said that they drove Wendy home, then continued on to a rural and wooded area in Taney County that detectives now knew was the Bulldozer Place. After parking in the field right before the forest, Tony got out and told Philip and Dusty to wait. He then forced Rusty and Becky out as well. With a gun to their backs, and with nothing on but their pajamas, Tony had forced the couple to walk off barefoot into the darkness. Philip said that he and Dusty sat there for about 10 minutes before they heard what was unmistakably a gunshot. Another 10 minutes passed, at which point they heard a second shot. Philip said that it wasn't until he saw his dad return from the woods alone that the magnitude of what they had just done truly started to sink in. Of course, as you may have noticed, there was one piece of the puzzle noticeably absent from Philip's story. Who had offered them the $100,000 to kill the Porters in the first place? Philip said that was easy. It was Rusty's uncle, Robert Campbell, and Robert's wife, Carolyn.
Did your dad tell you who had asked him to do this job?
Robert and Robert's wife, my dad's sister.
It turned out that Robert Campbell had been behind the plot to kill the Porters all along. While authorities already knew that he had been angry about the farmhouse and land that Rusty had inherited, there was actually a second motive as well. Robert had been running a criminal operation out of his property, one that mainly involved the sale of stolen equipment. Rusty and Becky had been extremely concerned about this illegal enterprise and had been making a lot of noise about it prior to their disappearances. In fact, this was a large part of what Becky had been referring to in those notes to Rusty that detectives found in the house. She was scared about the shady people who were hanging around. This was also the reason that Rusty had put up all those surveillance cameras. Angry that Rusty and Becky were meddling in his activities, Robert Campbell wanted them out of the way. Tony Friend had been a natural person to turn to. Not only was he Robert's brother-in-law, but he was apparently involved in the stolen equipment scheme as well.
I swear on the Bible, I had nothing to do with that deal. I have nothing to hide. I was not here when all this happened.
When charges were laid in the case, Tony and Dusty pleaded guilty. Tony received life without the possibility of parole, while Dusty Hicks received 2 life sentences. Wendy decided to go to trial, was convicted, and also received life without parole. Authorities were initially nervous when Robert Campbell also opted to go to trial, since there was no physical evidence tying him to the case. However, Philip Friend agreed to testify against him and ended up making for a powerful witness. In a later interview, one of the prosecutors would say that it was hard to overstate the impact Philip had on the outcome of the trial. In the end, Robert was found guilty of 2 counts of second-degree murder and was sentenced to life without parole. For his cooperation and agreement to plead guilty, Philip Friend received a reduced sentence of 10 years. According to reports, Robert Campbell's wife, Carolyn, took her own life while facing perjury charges for providing false testimony to a grand jury.